And welcome back to another Sportsnaut interview. I am your host, Evan Groat, and today we are joined by ESPN college basketball writer John Gasaway, kind enough to give us a few minutes of his time here, joining us from the Final Four. Of course, we have the National Championship game set for Monday night between the UConn Huskies and the Purdue Boilermakers. And John, we're happy that you were able to jump on with us here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a fun time of year where it's all down to this.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into it. I think this is it's interesting when you look at the entirety of the college basketball season. UConn and Purdue were two of the top teams all season long, and even with the unpredictability of college basketball and especially the NCAA tournament, here we are on the eve of the championship game, and we get not only the two teams that have played the best in this year's tournament, but the two teams who have really been the best all season long. And to me, this is the game that the fans deserve. We don't always get the top two teams playing in the championship, but this year we do. So I'd like to get some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think at the risk of being extreme, it's almost a perfect tournament so far because we had big, wacky, shocking surprises the first weekend that we've all long since forgotten about. But that's fun, and we want that. We don't want all chalk. And now at the other end, as you say, we've got Purdue and UConn. Now, Houston has a case to make for they were they were thought to be one of the best teams all along. So, it converges at the end with, you say that we all say that the two teams that are left standing were the best all along. And, you can make a good case for that with these two in particular, definitely UConn. But it's a special thing. It doesn't happen every tournament by any means. In fact, here's a fun bit of trivia. This is only the ninth time since the field expanded to 64 in the 80s. This is the only ninth time that two one seeds have met in the title game. Happened most recently in 21 with Baylor and Gonzaga. So it's pretty special. It's what, as a fan, I want. I want to see the best teams meet head to head, and let's see what happens. And we've got it Monday night. So let's enjoy.
Absolutely. The Cinderella stories are always a fun part of the tournament, but when it gets down to the championship games, you always want your two top teams playing. So I agree with you there. It's what I wanted to see as well. I want to talk about the historical run that we have seen from UConn here. I mean, we're talking about 11 straight NCAA tournament wins. We know about all the double-digit wins. They've dominated their way through the tournament once again this year. If you were to look back, thinking about all the tournaments that took place before this one, I think it'd be hard to find a team that has had a 2-year run like the UConn Huskies have. Dan Hurley just the other night said, we're making a difficult tournament look really easy. And I have to agree with him. They do make it look easy. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and Alabama hung with them. It looked like it was going to be finally a game for the full 40, and it almost got there. But then UConn did the UConn thing again. It took longer for it to happen. We saw it with Illinois. That game was tied, 23-23, and look what happened there. So UConn does this, and there is no precedent. That's not to disparage any of the great teams of the past, the UCLA dynasty. It's just that the tournament was smaller then. They played fewer games. So, no, we've never seen 11 straight tournament wins by double digits. It just hasn't happened. No team has had the opportunity for it to happen. And this is on another level. So I'm really interested, really excited about seeing if Purdue can throw a spanner in those works finally and play a complete 40-minute game against UConn. And let's not forget, it wasn't too long ago. It's just a matter of weeks that they lost at Creighton, and Creighton bombarded them with a bunch of threes. So maybe it can happen. UConn is not undefeated, so let's see what the Boilermakers can do. But historically speaking, this is special.
Yeah, and I think when you look at these two teams, there's a couple of different interesting storylines. I think the one that intrigues me the most is with the coaches. You look at on one side you have Danny Hurley, who is looking to become the first coach to repeat as champions since Billy Donovan did it with Florida. And if he could get that second national title, he's going to be joining some elite company. The names like Bill Self, Jay Wright, Rick Pitino, Dean Smith. That is tremendous company there. If he can get that second national championship, I think he would become the face of college basketball in terms of coaches. And then on the other side of it, you've got Matt Painter, a guy who has been around a while. His alma mater, Purdue, he played there. He's had some success since he's been the coach there, but he's never been able to really take the next step. To get that to that championship level. He has the opportunity to do so now. I think there's a lot on the line here for both coaches as far as legacies are concerned. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. And coming from different points on the compass, Hurley paid his dues. He rose through the ranks and got the UConn job. Painter was kind of fated to be, the successor to Gene Cady at Purdue. It is his alma mater. And he did sort of an apprenticeship at Southern Illinois, kind of a feeder network for Purdue with the Bruce Weber connection. And here he is. Purdue is doing this its own way. And Painter said this during Final Four weekend. Very few transfers in this day and age of, everybody's a transfer. UConn swims in that same water. So Purdue is interesting that way. Painter is a great example of a guy who marries old school with, definitely up on his analytics and embraces them. Made some interesting changes in the wake of the Farley Dickinson event last year. And they each have their own style. And you nailed it. If you win back-to-back national championships, you are in rarefied air, or if you win two in any sequence. So this is pretty remarkable what Hurley is 40 minutes away from doing. And who would have seen this coming? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that UConn was losing in the first round, repeatedly, and here they are. So just a remarkable run. And regardless of what happens in this next game, my hat is off to Hurley and what he has been able to build and what he's been able to rebuild after losing so much talent last year in the NBA. And here they are, if anything, looking better than last year. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been amazing to see how he's been able to kind of retool that team after, like you said, losing so much talent to last year's team. They have not really skipped a beat at all this year. One of the other intriguing matchups for me is, of course, the big men, right? And I think this year's tournament has been kind of a throwback. We've seen at least in the last couple of rounds, Elite Eight, Sweet 16, and of course the Final Four, we've seen the big men take center stage with DJ Burns and Edey and Klingon. And I think in this matchup, we get two of the best big men with Klingon and Edey. Now, Klingon is not the offensive threat that Edey is, but I do think that he will present Zach Edey with his biggest challenge in terms of, someone that can slow him down a little bit. I think whomever can stay out of foul trouble will also be a big factor in this game. But again, how do you, some of your thoughts on the matchup between Donovan Klingon and Zach Edey here in this championship game?
To give Edey, full, accurate praise, I would mark him as unique. I mean, even compared to the classic big men of old, Edey's playing in a age with a 3-point line, and that helps him. That creates space. The line was pushed out before the 2020 season, and there's more space than ever. But he is unique in the sense that he is everything that Purdue does on offense. Even if he's not taking the shot at the end, the gravity that he creates, particularly on the pick and roll, just creates so much space, usually for Braden Smith to drive to the basket. And it's reflected in the stats, but it's reflected in just what you see. He is absolutely everything, and that is to take nothing away from the talent around him, and they've been great. Klingon, more of a traditional and awesome rim defender. He is into, and I mean, this is high praise, but I think it's accurate. He is into just purely in terms of what he's doing for rim defense and not overall. He is into Anthony Davis in 2012 kind of territory where fouls were just not an issue at all with Davis because he was so incredible. He could just block every shot without picking up fouls. Klingon does pick up fouls, but his playing time is budgeted, and usually by the time he would be approaching any kind of foul trouble, UConn is up 30 and the game is salted away. So and you saw it again. I mean, now full credit to Grant Nelson. He kind of almost dunked on Klingon. That was pretty special. It was more of a throw, really.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So you can get some work done on Klingon, but the numbers tell a sorry tale for what opponents face in trying to make twos against this UConn defense when Klingon is on the floor. So knock on wood, I don't expect foul trouble to be an issue. It never is for Edey, of course, and I don't expect it to be a problem for Klingon. I think we'll get a real head-to-head collision here between the two big men, and I can't wait.
Yeah, me too. Looking forward to it. Our guest on this Sportsnaut interview is John Gasaway, ESPN college basketball writer. Now, John, having watched the Final Four games between both teams on Saturday night, we saw the high-scoring offense of Alabama keep the game tight with UConn. It was 56-56 about midway through the second half of that game until UConn went on that 30-16 run to close the game out. We've talked about the double-digit wins that they've had going back to their previous 11 straight tournament wins, but having watched that game, again, that was their biggest challenge. Do you feel that UConn is any more vulnerable now than they were before this championship game?
It does put a different cast on things, definitely. We thought that the Illinois game was the template here. Okay, we got it, we understand, and you're just going to blow everybody away. And on paper, Illinois was a slightly stronger opponent than Alabama, and look what happened. So it does show that you can hang with UConn, but they just keep finding new ways to be dominant, and that's unusual. It was for 4 games. It was just incredible defense. Last night was kind of a high-scoring affair. It wasn't terribly fast-paced, so the numbers don't look all that outlandish. UConn only committed 4 turnovers last night. That's in the Ken Pom era. That ranks in their top 10 since 1997 as far as best performance avoiding turnovers. So who saw that coming? And I mean, if you're going to be UConn and commit, near 0 turnovers, what does that leave the opponent? So we've had, every variety of huge surprise in past title games. We've seen overwhelming favorites lose. UConn can absolutely lose. Purdue can absolutely win. But this is the scale of the task as it looks to us before the game. And Alabama's performance kind of reduced the size of that challenge just a little bit for what the Boilermakers seem to be approaching.
Yeah. Now, I was watching the Purdue game, and it wasn't their cleanest performance. I believe they had 16 turnovers in the win. And I've seen a lot of stats out there that show a correlation between Purdue's success when they shoot the ball well from 3-point range. One of the better 3-point shooting teams in the country as far as percentages is concerned. They made 10 threes again in the win over NC State, shot over 40%. Even with a dominant big man in the middle like Zach Edey, how important will it be for Purdue to shoot the ball well from the outside in this game versus UConn?
It would be a big help, and I want to give Purdue full credit. They weren't making threes at all in the Elite Eight against Tennessee, and that's a really good team, and they won anyway because colon Zach Edey.
Yeah.
That's how awesome he is. Then he just got to the line constantly. He did his offensive rebounds that he always does against the Volunteers. NC State put a new spin on that, and well done. Edey did not go to the line. He shot 2 free throws against the Wolfpack. That's the smallest number he's had all season. He's within, or he was within range of a free throw record for a season that was set in 1954. That's how many free throws he's shooting. It looks like now he might not get it after that. But again, the threes, were falling for some of his teammates, and between Lawyer and Smith, they usually find a way to get that job done. And we saw it with Alabama. If you can, make your threes against UConn, that gives you one less Donovan Clingan to tend with and to worry about. So even with Edey, it would be a measurable help if some of those threes did fall for Purdue.
Before we wrap this up with a game prediction, I do want to ask you about the overall health of college basketball. I saw you tweet this out, and you talked not only about the men's game, but the women's game as well. When you look at the championship matchups that we have here, we have UConn and Purdue on the men's side versus Caitlin Clark in Iowa and the undefeated South Carolina Gamecocks on the women's sides. For all the talk about the NIL and the transfer portal and whether it's good or not for for college basketball, we have some really, really good matchups here in the finals on both sides. So I just want to kind of get some of your thoughts just on the overall health of college basketball right now.
The quality of the game has never been better to my subjective eye. It's a pleasure to watch both the men's and women's games in 2024. I've got some suggestions for cutting back on timeouts here and there, but the tweak to the block charge rule has been a fantastic success and has resulted in a better, cleaner game. You can still, the scoring efficiency is at an all-time high, but UConn is doing what it's doing primarily through awesome defense. You can still do that. You can still have a Donovan Clingan. And that's not even to begin to pay proper tribute to the women's game, which I number among my family relatives who vastly prefer the women's game, and they think it's cleaner and a little faster pace, fewer fouls, kind of a more classic basketball variety, and it's tremendously entertaining. Is it all-time high ratings? So. It's ironic that at this time where the NCAA is besieged and the model of how college sports are supposed to proceed is in flux. The game itself has never been better, and we should thank our lucky stars because we've got two great title games lined up.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to get you out of here on this one. The last time I looked, I think I saw UConn was a 5-point favorite. That might have changed a bit now, but game prediction. How do you see this one playing out here?
That feels about right.
Yeah.
I like UConn's streak of double-digit margins to end. I think this will be. This is going way back, but appropriately so. The pattern that UConn is trying to copy is Florida from 2007. And if you look on paper, those weren't blowouts necessarily that they were getting in that tournament run. But I was watching in real time, and you just never really had the sense that Florida was going to lose, that they would turn it on anytime they needed to. I feel that kind of game coming. I think it will be close. I think Purdue will hang. But I'm not sure I'll ever get this in-game sense of, whoa, this is happening. UConn's not going to win. We'll see. And bigger surprises than that have happened. But I'll take UConn in a 70-something 5-point win on Monday night.
All right. Thank you very much for the time, John Gasaway. You go out there and follow John on Twitter at John Gasaway and follow his work on ESPN. Thank you again for the time, John, and enjoy the game.
You too. Thank you.